Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Naria Lemaire Show, and I'm your host, Naria. If you are new, welcome to the show. Today we are going to talk a little bit about diabetes and constipation. Now, I am a registered dietitian that loves to talk about gut health. So let's get right into it. Now, a recent question I received is, Naria, why did I start to have symptoms of constipation after becoming diabetic? Now, that is a little bit of a loaded question, but always dissecting it and looking at the whole clinical picture is a huge part of it. So let's talk about one thing. And let me have you pause this and think, what's one thing that you hear doctors, I know it sucks that we hear this, but it happens. Doctors and patients say all the time that you should not eat when you're diabetic. Carbs. That's one of the biggest things I hear patients say. My doctor told me to not eat carbs anymore, or I heard I should do the keto diet, or I'm just avoiding carbs. Whatever the reason is, they're avoiding carbs. And if you've been following me for a while, where do we get fiber? Yeah. So if we're avoiding carbs and we're avoiding, I'm talking about all carbs, like fruits, vegetables, legumes. If we're avoiding all these carbs, where are we getting our fiber from? And if we're not having any fiber, is this guy going to be happy? The bacteria, the good bacteria, what is it going to feed on? If you're taking probiotics and you're not having enough fiber, you're not feeding the bacteria. Remember, the fiber, prebiotic, feeds the bacteria. There's no way around that, right? But for a lot of diabetics, they're avoiding fiber. So a big problem here is you're avoiding fiber. So problem one, we're going to go and say fiber. Low fiber intake. Now, what happens with a lot of individuals who are maybe on a low carb diet, or maybe aren't, let's say they're not controlling their blood sugars. They go to the doctor, the blood sugars are really high. So what is one of the medications that they give that's super, super common? Metformin. That's one of the medications. Now, metformin, I will say it's really good. It does its duty. It's really good at controlling blood sugars. It also can help with some weight management goals. So overall, even I'm not sure how it is now, especially with all the weight loss medications, but a few years ago, this was something that doctors would prescribe for just weight management goals before they went to something else. Now, again, I'm not sure now. I think from what I hear now, it's mostly the weight loss medications that are just for the weight loss. Now, going back to metformin, what's something that metformin can cause? One of the things it can cause is slowed gastric emptying. So basically, it can lead to some constipation. So if an individual starts with, let's say, metformin 500 milligrams once a day, okay. Now, let's say they go back to the doctor and their A1C isn't better, or it's crazy, it goes from like 7 to 10. Let's bump that metformin up to maybe 1,000 a day. Maybe we're going to bump it up to 2 grams. Now, let's say someone's on metformin and they're on all this high dose, but they're still not controlling their blood sugars. What's a condition that could be a result of not controlling the blood sugars? Gastroparesis. With gastroparesis, everything's slow. Everything's slow. The constipation, the pain, the bloating, all can be caused because of uncontrolled blood sugars. So when we think about, Naria, I have diabetes, I think, is it controlled? And when I say controlled, how controlled is it? How many medications are we on? Like, tell me the whole story here, because this is something that can affect the gut significantly. And because I'm all about gut health, my goal is to get to the root problem with my clients. So if I know that they're having gut issues, but they also have uncontrolled diabetes, where am I going to start, with the constipation or the diabetes? Am I going to load them up with fiber, or am I going to say, hey, like, what's the goal here? we have to address the root problem. Of course, we're going to work on the constipation, but it's not just going to be, let's work on the constipation and just put a blind eye on these blood sugars, because this is key. We have to control those blood sugars. Even worse, and these are usually pretty difficult cases, but when we get clients who are type 2 diabetic, have constipation, high levels of metformin, and they're losing weight, those are red flags. Those are 100% red flags. So those are things that you have to be very careful and address as quick as possible. Again, especially if I see weight loss in these, that's just the biggest red flag ever. Now, let's say someone has these issues. What's one thing we can do? And this is probably one of the easiest things they should be doing, we should be doing, every person on this planet should be doing, is having set meal times. This is huge. This is huge. Having set meal times help with having carbs consistently throughout the day, so that way your blood sugars are pretty stable. If you're skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, skipping this, skipping that, your blood sugars are going to be all over the place. All over the place. So one of the questions I get is, Naria, what do you believe, or what do you think about intermittent fasting? I always go back to, what do I see in practice? What do I see works with my clients? What do I see works with their quality of life? Always going back to the quality of life. Quality of life. Is this something that's sustainable? Now, when I think about intermittent fasting, I always think about this guy. So what that means is, I know that a lot of individuals like to do I'll fast until 12 or 1, and personal opinion, just based on what I've seen, I think it's just because people don't feel like making breakfast and they're too busy, and I get it, but stop right now. But with the intermittent fasting, really think about, instead of skipping your whole morning routine with no food, try to reverse that and say, hey, I'm going to stop eating at 4 to 5 after dinner and fast from dinner until breakfast time. You can still have about the same type of hours, and you allow your gut to relax. You're not always eating and eating, you relax. But if you are diabetic, we may need a snack at night. So let's say your dinner is at 5. The best thing for your body may be to have a snack in like 2 hours. So when we think about intermittent fasting, if I recommend it, it's going to be at nighttime, but it's going to be dependent on what's happening with the blood sugars. And that night snack is going to be focused on fiber, on healthy fats, on protein, to help stabilize those blood sugars throughout the night. So going back to the constipation, if we have a client that's diabetic experiencing constipation, we're going to look at the whole picture and start with the set meal times. If they're not having those set meal times, let's start there, because that's something that can help with their fiber intake. Really teaching individuals on, hey, let's add some carbs, but we're going to be mindful of the type of carb. Now, I will say that takes time. A lot of the times we're so in social media, going on Google, reading all this stuff, doing our own research, that we get scared to add foods back to our diet. It happens every day, all day with my clients. I see it all the time. It's something I will not fight them on. It's something that they have to just trust me on. I know the process, I know what works, and I know in this specific situation, adding carbs with fiber is going to be very, very beneficial, because remember, the fiber, and I know you guys have heard this all the time, I just can't preach this enough. Fiber is wonderful for controlling blood sugars. It's wonderful for bowel movements. It's wonderful for cholesterol. I mean, it's so, so good. So really getting comfortable with, what are carbs? Where can I find them? What should my portions look like? And growing from there. After that, really learning how it benefits your body. That's when I see individuals start to feel a little bit more comfortable in adding certain foods. And hey, at the beginning, we may try certain fiber products, but I'm very mindful of the type of fiber depending on the client's needs. If I have someone with like IBS and diabetes, we're going to be very careful. It may take a little bit more time, right? So we want to be mindful and say, okay, what can we tolerate? What's going on? But at the end of the day, we can't escape that we're going to need more fiber. Now, sometimes it's just as easy as, hey, we're working on the fiber, but you're not drinking any water, especially during winter. I think every day my clients are like, Naria, I didn't drink any water because it's cold and I'm not thirsty. we all have to drink the water. If it's summer, if it's winter, it doesn't matter, for healthy bowel movements. For my diabetics, being hydrated can significantly help improve those blood sugars. Hydration, fiber, it's the little things sometimes. But I know sometimes we get so excited that we want to start big. We want to go from step 1 to step 30, and skipping all those steps, eventually you're going to end back at step 1 to go to step 2. You can't skip the steps. You have to go back to what's boring. That's what I always tell my clients. It's not magic. It's not nothing out of the norm. It's really the boring things in life that work. It's having that routine, waking up at the same time, having the meal times, doing the day-to-day things are what's going to make the biggest difference. It's not, let me go to the gym 7 days a week for 3 hours and intermittent fast until 1 p.m. and drink like 5 gallons of water. No. No, you're not going to want to do that for the rest of your life. Maybe if you're some type of athlete, I don't know, for a short period of time. But when we talk about the day-to-day person, no, just don't, please. So going back to the fiber, or to the constipation and diabetes, how are they connected? Because of all the reasons I expressed. Now, one of the things I would encourage you, if you're experiencing constipation and you're diabetic, is to think, is my diabetes controlled? How controlled is it? Is it controlled with medications? Is it controlled with lifestyle? We want to get to the point that we're not just relying on medications to control our condition. We want to consider changing our lifestyle. Yeah, really taking the time to change the way that we eat, change the way that we move around. I always tell my retired folks, especially for my retired folks, if you're not working, if you're a stay-at-home parent, you're going to have to plan a little bit more movement than maybe someone who's moving around all day at work, right? So you always have to think about, what am I eating? How am I moving? How is my stress? How is my sleep? Again, sometimes it's the boring things in life. Those are a few things that you can try if you feel you're experiencing constipation and you're diabetic. Go back to the root problem. We always, in our practice with Naria Lemaire Nutrition, we always go to the root problem. There's no band-aid approaches here, and that's one of the biggest reasons our clients stay with us for months, because they know and they understand that healing the gut, working on lifestyle changes, changing habits takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. This is not a 30-day challenge. This is a life challenge. You need to change your habits and remember to make things sustainable. So consider, how controlled are my blood sugars? Am I scared of carbs? Am I trying a diet that may be making the condition worse? Would I benefit to work one-on-one with a registered dietitian? Maybe, maybe not. But consider where you're at now, what you've tried before, and where you want to be. As dietitians, our goal is not to remove food. Like I said before, we are not the food police. We want as much as possible to add things to your life, to add more foods to your life so you can enjoy life and have things you like. One of the biggest things I hear with my Hispanic population who's diabetic is the doctor told me I can't have tortillas or I can't have rice. And that is a huge lie. Yes, I'm telling you, it's a huge lie. You can have tortillas, you can have rice, but you have to be mindful of the overall plate, of the overall portion, the frequency, right? So it's the little things that are gonna make a change. The answer is rarely to never avoiding foods for the rest of your life. It's really just re-educating yourself on what your body needs, respecting what your body needs, and moving forward to that. If you're looking to improve your blood sugars, improve your constipation, talk to your medical provider and say, hey, can I focus on lifestyle changes to control my blood sugar so I can reduce some of this medication? Have them refer you. If not, feel free to contact us. We would love to schedule a free discovery call to see if you would be a right fit for us. You can send us a message at narialemaire@gmail.com or give us a call or text at 619-245-9336.